start. We are born again. Open your heart. Spend this time in your head.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Fab 4 meeting. We only have this one and then 2 more for the rest of the entire year. That is
Crazy.
so crazy. So, ladies, welcome back. For those who don't know, Lindsay Murphy, raise your hand, wave to the people. There we go. Indigo Neely down in the corner on my screen, and then Janet Greta. Welcome. How are you guys doing?
So good.
Good. Fantastic. I have a pink pencil because I'm taking notes. So I wasn't sure what we were going to talk about. I didn't have a clue. I was like, I don't know. I mean, we had some ideas. So I went live yesterday and I asked the people, and the people have spoken, and the people have said, holidays. Can we please talk about the holidays? So let's start with Halloween. Halloween is the next one that's coming up. We're going to go around and we're going to share ideas for how to survive and or prepare and or gift for that holiday. So, Lindsay, I'm going to start with you. For Halloween, what do we do?
Okay, so I feel like that's kind of a broad, open-ended question. And
I know you hate those.
I literally hate those so hard. But I will steer the ship in a direction and maybe somebody else will steer it a different direction. So I feel like time is kind of not everybody's highest or greatest commodity at the moment. It's a very limited thing, a resource that we have. So my initial response of, hey, we should just make our own versions of candies and keep them on hand, or buy our own versions of candies to keep on hand and have them separate. I kind of think that's a little bit short-sighted because time is just like, it's going at a very rapid pace these days. So I'm going to ignore that and say, what should we do as far as handing things out, giving the things, giving the gifts and all that jazz? And candy has gotten so expensive. Even the regular garbage candy that, everybody actually does love, that has all of the lovely colorants and sugars and flavorings that make your brain just light up with all kinds of excitement. And what we are probably going to do is we're probably going to be giving out regular stuff for trick or treat this year. But one of the things that we have done in the past is to do things like little, have you ever been to the dentist and they always have a treasure trunk of little tiny prizes, or some teachers do this in their, the little googly eye rings, or you get a dozen different temporary tattoos, or the little bitty Play-Dohs, dye free if you can't handle the dye, and just the little trinkety stuff. It's fun for the kids. They don't feel as disappointed that it's a box of raisins. And so that's just something kind of fun for them. And as a parent who generally sifts through all of the junk candy and says, okay, we're going to limit the amount that you consume to limit the impact on you, I always feel appreciative when I see, those little bitty short gel pens, or, the little bitty notebooks that, children love, or the temporary tattoos. We love temporary tattoos around here. So that's always a winner. So just those little kind of throwaway prize things are usually what we wind up wanting to receive rather than the candy. I have friends that will buy the candy their kids get and give them back stuff that is dye free for them. They have a dye allergy. So it's just one of those things where you have to make what you're doing more fun than what everybody else is doing, but also say, okay, everybody else is doing this thing. We understand it. We respect their right to choose to hand out these things, but we're going to do something a little different, and look at how long your temporary tattoo lasts compared to that dum dum lollipop. It's all in how you sell it and how you phrase it. So as for things to give out, that would be my preferred avenue.
I love it. Okay, Neely, you're next.
Yeah, so we are out in the country, so we don't really get the trick-or-treaters coming to our door, which I'm thankful for. Like just the idea of buying the candy and like giving it to children, that just makes me sad. um, and of course, you can buy like healthier versions, but they're like 3 times the cost. And it's like the kid has a bucket of all the other kinds of candy. It's like, how is that really helping the situation? Anyway, so I'm glad I don't have to worry about that. I wish my kids didn't care about Halloween and we could just, not do it. But I mean, they're kids in America and it's so glorified and it's so fun. And I get it. I totally get it. So I am not a purist when it comes to my own diet, and I'm not a purist when it comes to my kids' diet for sure. I think that they are very healthy, their metabolisms are very healthy. They can handle some stuff. It's not like one little push is going to push them over the cliff. They're like way back from the edge. And so I also try to think about like their health in a holistic way and how there can be some detriment to feeling like you're not included in like the social aspect and like you're different from everyone around you. And we're already different in so many ways from the people around us that it's just like, I don't want that to just be another thing where, oh, my mom says I can't, I just have to eat, my box of raisins. So I try to, as much as I can, let them experience the fun of Halloween and not worry about the result, knowing that they have a really solid base of their diet. If I had a child that was struggling with, juvenile diabetes, which is on the rise, like struggling with weight issues, like it would be a completely different story. Like dealing with something completely different. So I sympathize very heavily with those parents that are dealing with that because that is hard. But for me, that's not where I'm at. So I do allow my kids to have the candy. And so we haven't done trick-or-treating every year. We usually do if someone invites us, we'll go, or if there's like some kind of an event, like this year it's going to be a trunk or treat at their soccer field. So we'll do that. But what I do try to do is let them, enjoy the night, have their candy that night, but then take the candy and use it as like prizes for, memory games or like schoolwork stuff. And so it's not like they have this bag of candy that they just, are eating out of whenever they want. And one year I did that and we had candy for like 8 months. It was so much candy, but I mean, we would just use it for school games and that way they weren't just getting that huge hit of it constantly. It was just little treats here and there. So I do that. And then I do also go through the candy and like take out just the garbage, like the bottom of the garbage bin of candy, because last year there was this cotton candy, like packets of cotton candy that was just all high fructose corn syrup and dye. It was awful. So thankfully they're not super attracted to that kind of thing. So I just throw that away. But
leave the chocolate, right?
Yeah, leave the chocolate. I think like a solid chocolate bar, there's not a lot terrible about that for kids. Like there's a lot of good stuff about just chocolate. So that's what I'm most happy with. But yeah, try to just weed out as much of the absolute garbage that I can, and then try to just let them have fun with the rest, like in a moderate way. Learning moderation, I think, is something that is not taught to children well these days. And I struggle. I mean, I have in the past. I feel like I've grown a lot in it, learning how to moderate, but it's something that I really want to instill in my children. So instead of saying, no, we just can't have any of this, like in an abstainer, like treating them like they're an addict already, trying to teach them how to be a moderator, because I do think that that can be taught in certain circumstances, especially when you start at a young age. So just helping them practice moderation, I think, is a really good life skill. So having the bag of candy that's there for months and that, we get a little bit out of every once in a while, I think that's a good approach and a good practice for them.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Janet, your turn.
Well, my kids are older. So my youngest is 20. So our trick-or-treating days are over and have been for a while. I have never been a Halloween fan, like ever. Even in my childhood and teenage years, I literally would be the one not to go out anywhere like Halloween night because I just was never a fan ever. It's probably my least favorite holiday, if I'm being completely honest. And so the girls, they did go out for Halloween for trick or treating, and they usually always went with their dad all of the time. So Jimmy would be the one to kind of truck them around. And we live in a small community as well. Like we only have 100 to 200 houses here, and probably a quarter of them only hand out candy. So they usually get the bigger size chocolate bars. Like that's just what we always handed out here in our little community, unfortunately. But so that's what I did when I did hand out candy. I would be the person as well to hand out the big size chocolate bars, get them at Costco, and a pack of 18 is pretty much enough for the trick-or-treaters that we get at the house. So that's what we normally do. We haven't actually participated in Halloween for the last 2 years since the girls have kind of grown up and are over it. And there is little care packages that we do up for family friends that like live in the community that have little ones. We just do up like one of those little pumpkins that you get from the dollar store, and then you can fill it with little activities and things like that. So we do. Jimmy loves doing that because Jimmy loves kids. And but yeah, we did it the whole traditional Halloween, and with all the sugar. But the whole thing is what I wanted to mention with moderation, like Neely had mentioned. So when the girls came home, Zoe was allergic to nuts, so we would sort through all of her candy, and all of the nut candy would go to Jimmy because he loves chocolate. And at the end of that, Zoe probably only had half of the amount that Jenna had all the time. And we kind of monitor it. Like that night, they were allowed, because another big thing is like a can of pop. It's sometimes like a can of pop and a big chocolate bar around our area. So I would say you can either choose like one of each, one of the pop and one of the chocolate bar to have that night on Halloween when you get home. Because we sorted our candy all of the time. It was a tradition. The girls came home, we laid it all on the floor, we went through it all to make sure it was all safe, and then they could have those items that night. And then I monitored, they each had different colored bowls, and I would monitor all of that. But the novelty of that candy really wore off very, very quickly. So over the course of the next 3 or 4 days, they were like, can I get my piece of candy now? I did my homework, I did my chores, whatever. And I would give them their piece of candy. But literally after day 4, they totally forgot the whole thing was up in the cupboard. And Jimmy was like, yes, I get to eat all of that chocolate. But monitoration, that's a big thing, I feel, for kids. I feel it's very, very important. But honestly, with our kids anyways, they never have had like a diabetes scare or weight issues or anything of that matter, but we still did monitor it. And the novelty wore off after a couple of days of Halloween, honestly. And sometimes what I would do is put it in their lunch as well. I remember that when they were little, I would stick one in their lunch every day as well too. So, but our plans this Halloween is bedtime is 7 o'clock.
I love that.
I'm here
Okay.
for that.
I need to adopt that. That's what I need to do. So I'm going to be totally honest. I am 100% your twin on this, Janet. I never wanted to dress up. I never wanted to participate. My mom was like, do you want to hand out candy? I was like, do I have to? I just never enjoyed it. So since we've moved here, I have 100% used it as an excuse. Like I've used that as been like the background, but generally it's at least 30 minutes to drive anywhere to where there would be a festivity. And it's always so cold here that I use that as an excuse for us not to do anything on Halloween. So instead we've created a new tradition, and we will still dress up and we all get together, and I will make brownies. I will make pumpkin loaf. I will make 18 things all during that day. And then at night we will sit, and most of them are keto. We will sit and we will all watch together Charlie Brown and the Great Pumpkin.
That is such a great tradition.
And we will sit
That's
there
great.
and gorge ourselves on keto crap. And the next morning, the kids are talking about it because I used to do the, okay, I'll exchange you your candy for a toy. My kids are so sensitive that if they eat M&Ms, we will have epic meltdowns, rashes, headaches, vomiting. I mean, it's insane. They're so sensitive. And I don't think it's necessarily the sugar as much as it is the artificial dyes and, everything else, which 99% of the candy that they get is artificial dyes. My kids don't really care too much for the chocolate. They like the fruity stuff. And I'm like, this is not helpful. Chocolate is not deadly, but the fruity stuff kind of is because it's all of that junk. So it was terrible for a solid week after Halloween. And the kids were like, I don't really want to do that because they know themselves that that temptation is so strong and that they will want to eat it. They will partake and then they're throwing up for a couple of nights. They have severe headaches. Like they're so sensitive. It's horrid. So instead, we've created the new tradition. So it's always Charlie Brown and the Great Pumpkin. And I will still let the kids dress up and they're running around the house like maniacs. And we literally just sit there and have this giant feast of junk food. And it's, it's still keto junk food. So we have our favorite brownies that we do. It's a package. And I can have like a cube. It's like that big and I don't die. So that's the way that we do it. I use that as an excuse. I'm like, we live too far out. It's freezing. How about we just watch? And Bella actually drew a card the other day and she drew Charlie Brown and the Great Pumpkin.
Oh.
And she was like, it's almost time, Mommy. It's almost time.
Kids love traditions like that. That's
exactly.
great.
They're looking forward to that versus getting sick because the older ones remember, they're like, do you remember that year we puked for 3 days? I'm like, yes, I do. I 100% do. And they're like, can we not do that again? So that's the way that we handle Halloween here. Something totally different. And that's just probably partially my selfishness because I never enjoyed it. I just never did. So I'm like, I'm going to use that to my advantage. It's cold and it's far. So let's not. So
one thing that we didn't touch on is we all talked about kids and things, but I think a lot of people that are watching probably are thinking more towards how they are going to handle all the candy around them and the temptation of, having it in the house. It's like I've gotten to the point where it doesn't bother me as much as it used to, but definitely in different places where I've been in my journey, it's like the candy is just there and you're just like, it's like calling your name, like how do you fight that? And for a lot of us, it's just not an option to keep it out of the house. Like for some people it is. And if they can do that, like more power to them. That's awesome. There are times where I wished I could have done that, or maybe I should have done that and I didn't. But I don't know, maybe we could talk a little bit about strategies if we, we're struggling in that place of feeling the need to binge when the stuff is there, and maybe strategies of like how we deal with that.
Yeah, I love it. Why don't you go ahead and you can start us off? I know you opened your mouth. You get to be number one.
Okay. So
she's like, I've got a list.
Yeah. So in the times where I have been more in the place where one bite like sets me off to eat it all, that's the times where I knew that I couldn't take that first bite. And I remember there were years because we make truffles at Christmas time, chocolate truffles. And there were years where I would make truffles and I'd be in a really good place, like with my keto diet and feeling good. And I'd make truffles and I knew that as soon as I ate one, it was like off the rails. And so I would, push it off until, because I want to partake, in the tradition, but I would like push it off until the very last minute where I didn't have the opportunity after that really to go off the deep end. because it wasn't just a mental thing. It was definitely like a physiological thing where one bite with the sugar, it just set that thing in my brain where I just have to keep feeding it, you know? So either accepting that about yourself, that if I take one bite, it'll be all over, just the same as an alcoholic with alcohol, one sip and it's over. So knowing yourself, I think, is really, really important. And if you're at that place, like, be honest with yourself and say, I can't even take a bite. And going along with that, knowing yourself, this other strategy may be good or bad, and that is having keto alternatives. These days, there's lots of them. Some are better than others. Of course, my recommendations are things like Perfect Keto bars and stuff like that, because they have quality ingredients. If you go to Costco, you'll find keto stuff that may or may not really be helpful to a keto diet. But it's like, is it better to like be white knuckling it and end up eating the regular candy, or is it better to have some keto alternative that you enjoy and maybe sets you back a little bit, but not as far as the regular candy? And obviously we could say, well, the best option is just not to eat it at all and just eat steak. But we live in a real world with real temptation, and sometimes we have to choose what's good over what's perfect. And that goes back to like thinking of ourselves as holistic beings and our whole health, and sometimes joining in with a keto treat when everyone else is having treats is healthy for your soul. So kind of balancing that. And so for some people, that's a great strategy to have keto treats that they can indulge in. That's a treat to them when everyone else is having the chocolate. For some people, even tasting that sets them off, and then they end up eating the whole bag of chocolate. So that's another area where you really just have to know yourself. And it's funny because I've been all of those things at different times in my life. So, and it does change. It can change. So there are times where I feel like I've needed to be an abstainer. There's times where I feel like I can be a moderator, but it's that self-awareness that is so important.
I 100% agree with that. Knowing yourself, and I've been saying for years, if you're going to cheat, please cheat keto. Like that, even if it's dirty keto, even if it's the junky stuff from Costco, I'd honestly rather you eat that in most cases than 90% of the other stuff that you could potentially ingest, but that's only if it's not going to trigger you. Honesty is honestly the most important thing at this point in time. Being honest with yourself, knowing who you truly are, and then forgiving yourself. Because so many times we're like, oh, if I could just, then I would just, and it's all my fault. I'll never be able to. That doesn't help anybody. And loving yourself where you are, knowing that I just got to abstain from absolutely all of those, and having that hope that maybe someday you won't have to. I can absolutely now eat something, have a few bites of it and go, I'm good. Like, I am so topped off. I don't need any more. It's not going to trigger anything else. And it's been a growing and a learning for myself. So, Janet, how about you? Any advice on that front?
Yeah, last year, what I did for Halloween, actually, because I was really into the protein sparing modified fasting stage last fall. And so I was feeling really good, and I was, losing the regain and everything like that. So I was very motivated. And I feel going back to like knowing yourself, especially how you're feeling. And at that time, I was very motivated. So for me, I live in a house full of carbs, literally, junk. Like I said, Jimmy loves his snacks and his chocolate. And so I live with that constantly anyways. So Halloween is no different than just everyday life for me. But when we did do Halloween. We did hand out candy last year. And what I ended up doing for myself that night is we didn't really have a supper because, you know, kids start early around here. They're usually like 4 o'clock, right? And I made up a charcuterie board for myself. And I made keto chocolates as well. And I did that for myself in order to last. It's only a couple hours as well that kids go out trick-or-treating here. It's not very long. We don't get many kids. So that is what I did. And I just snacked on that. You know, it wasn't really a meal, but it lasted me, you know, over the course of an hour or two, snacking on the meat and cheese and having my little keto chocolates. And that's what I did in order to resist the temptation of all of the full size chocolate bars that were left over. And then of course, if there's anything left over, it just goes to Jimmy, or else we always donate it as well too. If we have a ton of leftover and it's really cold that year and we have a ton of candy, we will always donate it, obviously depending on what it is. But you know, food banks are happy to take those, right? And that kind of deters the temptation on November 1st, you know, if you do have candy left over, right? Mm-hmm. So like I said, it's a little bit different scenario because we don't have little ones around. Or even if Zoe wants to take a few chocolate bars, you know, that's totally fine with me. But last year I remember specifically that I was really determined and in such a great mind space. And that kind of made the world of difference for last year. But yeah, I would just suggest a charcuterie board or having something like that you can just kind of nibble on, you know, while all the trick-or-treating is happening with your kids or what have you.
I love that.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. Lindsay, your turn.
Okay. So the thing that I thought of first was, okay, first of all, having the grace with yourself, and Janet, your technique of the charcuterie to sort of graze on throughout the whole situation. I love that plan. And that is one of those acceptable good plans, not a perfect plan, because so many people here on the YouTubes are going to say, you have to eat within this narrow, like 1 hour eating window so that you don't get your glucose all out of whack and that these things don't happen. And snacking all the time is terrible for you. Well, it's a one-off, right? Or it's an intentional, planned situation. So having that plan in place, I think, is big. I also think having a frank and honest conversation with whomever is your partner in life or whomever you live with and saying, listen, I struggle with this and I'm not being sarcastic. I cannot tease you. I'm not teasing you about these things. This is a big area of frustration and struggle for me. Please help me so that I can be better for you. And those kind of honest conversations with the people you have at your house. Sometimes they don't realize just how significant of a downward spiral you can sort of find yourself sliding down when you have that many opportunities for temptation in your presence. So not necessarily saying to them, well, you're going to have to eat your food in secret because your food is shameful, but saying, I have a specific need in this specific period of time where I really would appreciate your love and support in this period of time. It's a finite day or week or whatever the case may be, but I really could use your support to help me to be better for you.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I don't think it could have been said better. I love that. And all of this goes for all of these holidays, not just Halloween. Mm-hmm. This is for any birthday, any time. So your charcuterie board, your frank and honest and open conversation with your partner, your grace for yourself, and allowing yourself to have maybe something that's slightly off plan, but not all the way in the deep end. So keep that in mind as we progress to the next holidays. So now, next holidays, what, Linz?
Well, I was going to say, it also, if you take every single upcoming holiday as an opportunity to practice exercising these muscles, you know, we don't just like start running a marathon, running gross. We don't start running a marathon day one, you know, like the whole couch to 5K program is a thing because it's getting up and starting small and just practicing a little bit and practicing a little bit more and a little bit more. So Halloween is the first opportunity for us to practice either self-control or practice substitution or practice having those difficult conversations or practice, because coming up, we're going to have, you know, US Thanksgiving, we're going to have the Christmas holidays, New Year is a big, you know, a big opportunity to gorge yourself on all the stuff and the things. And then comes, what is it, Valentine's Day, and then we've got St. Patrick's Day, and then we have Easter, and it's just like we're in the beginning stages. I mean, obviously Canadians, y'all have already had your Thanksgiving, so you've had one on us. So y'all should be better. No, I'm just kidding. But
I
just
was
being
thinking,
able to exercise those practice muscles
Yeah.
and say, hey, here's my first chance, and then my next chance, and really pause to assess how it went and what areas you could say, okay, this was easy for me. I'm going to practice focusing on this thing that may not have been so easy. That takes a lot of honesty with yourself. Like Neely was saying, you have to choose to be honest with yourself first, and then those around you next. So just, it's practice. It's a practice game. It's preseason.
Yeah,
Here we go.
I totally agree. And I was thinking that there have been times where I was trying to be honest with myself and I thought that I was ready to, you know, moderate something. So, and then it ended up, you know, snowballing and being a total fail. But what I would encourage everyone, if they find themselves in that place, is not to waste that experience, because every time I've experienced that, I've learned something about myself. And like you said, it's all practice, and it's not just the successes that are practice getting us to a good place, but even the failures can be stepping stones to get us there. So, because I know there's so much shame involved in food and finding yourself, you know, at the bottom of a bag of whatever, or the end of a pan of brownies, or, you know, and it's like, it's so easy to just focus on the shame, but to accept that there is good to be learned in any experience. It can pull you out of that spiral, because once you're in the shame, it's like, well, there's nothing good about this. It's all bad, so I might as well keep piling on the bad. But if you can pull the good out of it, it kind of can propel you to start making the better decisions.
The wisdom nuggets are running thick right now. This is like gold here, right? I love it.
Cannon for it. We're in Nevada. Here we go.
Pan for the gold. I love it. The gold nuggets. Exactly. That's what it is. Okay. So Janet, since you already had your Thanksgiving, why don't you share your Thanksgiving tips for anybody, since we still have to wait. You are living in the future. We'll catch up to you eventually.
Yeah, so our Thanksgiving this year was a little bit different because we actually didn't celebrate it, because Zoe's birthday is on October 12th. So her birthday and Thanksgiving is always literally days apart. So since there's only the three of us here, four, including my dad, who will come over, we decided just to celebrate on Zoe's birthday, and she wanted a roast chicken meal. That's what she requested. And I thought, you know what, that's perfect, because we won't do our Thanksgiving and we'll just do a birthday / Thanksgiving celebration with the roast chicken. And that's what we did this year. We just celebrated her birthday as well as Thanksgiving, because we didn't have a whole house full of people. And we had the roast chicken, and we had some cabbage and turnip and potatoes and carrots and green beans. And it was really good. I really didn't make anything keto for that day. I was just kind of pick and choosing of what I wanted, because a lot of the vegetables, like the turnip and the cabbage, you know what I mean, have a little bit of that. And it was really, really good. I did make a couple things on my channel dessert wise, but the pumpkin cheesecake that I recently made was delicious. And I'm going to be making that again, because it was so good, using the Catalina Crunch cereal mixed with butter for the crust. It was absolutely delicious. So I would recommend that, to have like kind of like options for you. That's what I've done recently on my channel. I've usually done like a mock-up Thanksgiving, and done like a protein sparing modified fast stuffing recipe or buns. And then also like a keto dessert. So that's kind of what I would recommend. The holidays, especially December is very hard for me because my birthday is a week before Christmas. So then it goes my birthday, Christmas, and New Year's all within 3 weeks. And that is the hardest time of the year for me. Bless Jimmy, but he always makes my birthday like a week-long thing because, of course, having my birthday so close to Christmas, it always was like included in one, kind of like Zoe's is with Thanksgiving. But he always makes it really special and does a lot of things for my birthday. So it draws out for like a week, and he'll be like a little chocolate one day, and then flowers the next day, and then, you know, little things. It's just a really hard time of the year because there's always temptations during Christmas time. It's really difficult. And that's one holiday that we always do really, really big is Christmas. So, but I recommend just keto substitutions as far as your stuffing and buns and your keto like desserts.
Yeah, so I'm sorry I looked away for a second. I'm closing my blinds, first of all.
Okay.
I'm getting blinded. I looked away for a second because I put Catalina Crunch on my shopping list
Yes.
because that's going to need to happen
It's
in the
good.
future. I just watched your video today, and I will actually link that up in the cards for anyone who's curious about it. Because
That was literally the best thing I think I've ever made, like pumpkin dessert wise. It
when
was
you said that,
amazing.
I was
Yeah.
like, okay, no, that
Yeah.
needs to happen. And I
Put
think
that
we
on
have a
your list
store.
for American Thanksgiving, you guys.
Yes, exactly. And I think we have a store here locally that may actually carry the Catalina Crunch.
Nice.
Costco's been carrying it.
Yeah.
recently.
I see it at Target.
Yeah,
around
we have
here.
it's called Woodman's. They have the most incredible, holy cow. And I learned about it from the people on the YouTubes. So
Nice.
it's like
You're
an hour
lucky.
away. I think they may have it. So I gotta go. I put that on my list because I need to do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes people need permission to not celebrate a holiday.
Mm.
Like, it's hard. But being a military family, we celebrated when we celebrated.
That's
If
how we are.
if the parent was gone, and yeah, I know Jared's gone a lot. If the parent was gone, we weren't going to celebrate without them. And I didn't want to get so stuck in a rut that I had to follow what everyone else was doing to be able to fit in, which is, you know, I like to buck the trend. Maybe not as much as Lindsay does, but I flex that muscle every now and then. So thank you for that, Janet. In case someone needs permission to just not do it, that is also an option. So, Neely, let's go to you for Thanksgiving. Do you guys have a Thanksgiving plan right now? Because I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, well, we don't have a plan for this yet, but it'll probably be the same as normal. Just my family, and we will do a great thing about Thanksgiving to me is that there's already so many healthy foods that are part of it.
Yeah.
Turkey, roast turkey is delicious.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk bad about turkey, but if it's made right, it can be really delicious with like butter and herbs, and it's amazing. And then my brothers are big like meat smokers. They're really good at making delicious meats. So there's always like another meat or two, like a beef tenderloin or ribs or something like that. So it's like Thanksgiving is like not a worry to me. I usually try to do some kind of a keto dessert, or at least something that's paleo-ish, maybe not completely keto, but just on a little bit on the healthier side for those that lean that direction. And then there's always like ice cream and pies and stuff like that. And for me, different years, it's looked different. There have been years where I knew that I really needed to stay strict for whatever reason. And then other years where I felt like I was at a place where I could handle, you know, a little bit more on the treat side. I always have like my non-negotiables because of the way they make me feel. And it's funny because it's not keto. It's not like, oh, I just have to stay keto. It's more about specific ingredients.
Mhm.
Like, I don't do well with wheat. Like, I'm not going to grab one of the fresh made biscuits. I'm just not. Like, that's not on the table for me at all. But I might, you know, have a piece of regular cheesecake that has sugar in it, you know. So it really, it doesn't come down to keto or not keto for me. It really, and that's just because over the years I've really honed in on the specific foods that my body does well with and doesn't. And it's always a, continually refined process, where I'm always adding to it or whatever, trying out different things. But yeah, so it can really vary from year to year. Now this year, I don't know what I'm going to do because I've been doing the whole SIBO killing protocol and stuff. So I'll have to kind of wait until I'm closer to the day of to decide. But if I'm like in the middle of a antimicrobial round or something, it might make a difference. But I just love that there's already so many healthy things that are already keto at the Thanksgiving table typically.
And it does make it a lot easier to just go ahead and have some of those things. Go ahead and have this and that and a little bit of this and that. I tried, carnivore thing for a long time, and then I did the high fat carnivore, and then it started backfiring on me, just like my original. Oh my cow. So I am definitely including some more plant things, but I'm finding I have to be very, very, very specific about which ones I can handle. So that's what our Thanksgiving is going to be, is what I can handle, because most of the kids can only handle what I can handle as well, which makes it really nice. So it'll be very interesting to see. That's my plan for Thanksgiving. I don't know yet. It's kind of like Neely of I don't have a clue where
things are changing so rapidly that it's just like, let's just wait until we get a little bit closer. We're still a month away.
Yeah, that's right. We got a little bit of time to prepare, and we all have to make that pumpkin cheesecake beforehand to practice.
That might have to be my keto dessert for the year.
Exactly. Okay, how about you, Lindsay?
We always plan and we hold on loosely to that plan, just because you just never know when things will shift for us. So our current tradition, so to speak, has been to go down to Texas to my mom and dad's and do Thanksgiving down there with my sister and her family. And that has been a lot of fun. My brother-in-law, he likes to fry turkeys. My dad loves to cook all the meat. Jared loves to cook all the meat. My mom she's a good cook, and she likes to cook things, but she prefers to bake things. So generally speaking, she's like, what sides do we want? My dad loves Brussels sprouts. Everybody in my family loves them except for my mom and my girls. So we're like, let's do the Brussels sprout thing. And so we have all the Brussels sprouts. We have all of the, super fried turkey. We have, I don't remember if there was any beef last year. I feel like there was, but I can't quite remember. So there's like a lot of traditional things. My grandmother has a dressing recipe, and there is a difference between stuffing and dressing. For those who are not familiar, stuffing means it goes in the bird. Dressing means that it was baked outside the bird. So we have a dressing recipe my grandmother has made since, creation. And it's one of those things where I did make it in a keto format, and it turned out really, really well. So if I feel like I need that, I'll bake like a small loaf of my keto friendly bread and then make that for myself and Jared. But one of the things that we did last year, was it last year? I can't remember. Time goes so weird. Was we shredded up cabbage, sauteed it, like fried it in the pan, mixed it up with eggs and sausage and sage and other things, and made our own little dressing that didn't require me spending, the 2 hours beforehand baking the bread, cooling the bread, managing the bread, turning around, cutting it up to rebake it all. Like it's a long, arduous process. So instead we basically did cabbage and eggs, but added in sausage and seasonings that were appropriate for a dressing, and baked that off in like a little, small dish. And it was amazing. And I didn't miss grandma's dressing. I've never really felt a strong pull toward potatoes unless they were sweet potatoes covered in the marshmallows. And generally speaking, it was the marshmallows that was the draw, not the sweet potatoes underneath. As my tastes have changed, the roasted sweet potatoes are way more delicious and desirable to me. Salt and pepper and cinnamon on roasted sweet potatoes are clutch, and I will happily consume all of those. And it's, I tend to steer more low carb on those holidays where we're sharing meals with more than just me and, you know, my husband and our 3 children. So I'll eat the sweet potatoes if they are roasted. I'll eat more Brussels sprouts than I probably would if they're roasted. I'll eat more turkey than I probably would. And generally speaking, a lot of people in my family, they'll go for piles of dressing, piles of mashed potatoes, and some turkey. So that means the balance is sort of like out of whack. I'll scoop up the extra turkey. I'll scoop up like these other things that may not be as palatable to some other members of my family, but are still presented. And by the end of it all, I'm usually so stuffed that all I can do at the end of a meal is drink coffee, which is generally also, say generally more, Lindsay, is usually my crutch when it comes to these things. Is my family likes to have a pot of coffee, hot tea available, whatever the case may be. If it's Christmas time, it's eggnog. I will always eat whatever meat is available. If there are lower carb friendly vegetable side dishes, I'll choose some of that, but I will inevitably fall back on 17 cups of coffee and be satisfied.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And be blessed.
So it's one of those moments where, yeah, it's one of those moments where it's like you want to have something because everybody else is having a thing. And I'm happy with black coffee. And I know not everybody is happy with black coffee. So you have your cream, or you have your fun things that you put in your coffee to make them fancified.
Mm-hmm.
And just you have something, and you're part of that fellowship moment without having to fully indulge in everything else. And it just people want something in their hands. And I've noticed that other people who don't fully understand what I'm doing or why I'm doing it, they get a little skittish about the fact, why aren't you having a thing? Because when you were 12, you would have all of the thing. Why are you not having the thing at 38?
Mm-hmm.
Well, things change, but here I've got coffee. Does that soothe the image in your mind? Does that sort of like stop the cognitive dissonance? And I do think it's difficult to manage other people in those situations. So having a cup of tea or having a cup of coffee or some other drink that, you know, if you drink the diet beverages of sodas and such, and those don't seem to cause issues for you, having just something in your hand can help you in those situations not be sort of like causing dissonance in the other attenders' minds. Wow, that went on a weird tangent.
That was perfect though, because
I was gonna say, I'm so hungry right now after all of that. I haven't had breakfast yet, and I'm dying. I was doing okay until all that talk.
That was poor planning on your part, Neely. Poor planning.
Yeah. Well, I'm ready to go have a Thanksgiving dinner.
Right?
Like right now.
Right now.
Pretty much. I'm sitting here making notes about, okay, maybe we'll have this and maybe we'll have this.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. I agree. I'm actually thinking I'm gonna try a low carb Thanksgiving and see how that goes. I'm very curious. So I think that may be in my future. But yes, I completely agree. We shouldn't cater to others. We do not owe them an explanation. So sometimes it's easier to just head off the questions with keeping something in your hand. And if there's a charcuterie board sitting around, you can walk around and, you know, grab the meat or the cheese or whatever, have your drink, have your thing, and just nibble.
Yeah.
Just little bits, because then you're partaking and you're doing the same thing. So then there's no questions, whether it's, you know, sparkling water or just a glass of water. Honestly, you know, put some lemon in it so it's fancy. Anyways, we have one more holiday to go through. So, Lindsay, I'm going to start with you because you're on fire with the wisdom nuggets today. How do we do Christmas, girl?
Okay. I think that Christmas is kind of fun because when my father-in-law was alive, he would always go through and do like these huge, fancy, like amazing things for Christmas. And it was never the traditional, you have your ham and you have the same exact size that you had at Thanksgiving, but instead of turkey, you have it with ham. And it was always a blast because it was just, you never knew it was going to be homemade gnocchi and crab crusted grouper, or just like all of these wild concoctions. And so you can choose to go the traditional route, absolutely. And there's tons and tons of recipes on the interwebs to ketoify anything your heart's desire. And it's kind of fun to take one of those holidays and maybe switch it up with something that's unexpected, like crab crusted grouper, or maybe you do some kind of a prime rib, but you have, surf and turf or something like that. And I know that's not actually that outlandish or outsea-ish. One of those. But to me, Christmas time screams either peppermint mocha or eggnog. And so my trick of always having something to drink, I'm gonna wind up probably having a ton of eggnog. And I have made eggnog for years and years and years now with the low carb version of it. And just having a vat of eggnog is really my personal preference on how to navigate all of the things. And it's easy to take it low sugar or no sugar, or sugar alternatives, sweetener alternatives. So I just have lots and lots of that. My mother, she loves to make German chocolate pie, which has coconut in it. And as much as coconut is highly friendly to a low carb lifestyle, I do not care for shredded coconut. So it's not difficult for me to stay away from some of those more classic, typical holiday pies and things like that, because I'm like, usually there's something in each of these that I just don't like. And I'm not willing to sacrifice my stomach space for that thing over my eggnog. So finding that one thing that you're just like, oh, this is it, and going with it, I think that usually helps. I don't know if I kind of feel like I wandered a little bit.
No, you're good. And then it's acceptable to say, oh, I'm full.
Yes, 100%. That is always a good thing.
Just, one more tool in the tool bag. Like, oh no, I am so full. Overeat, on the dinner stuff, and then go, I don't have room for dessert. Maybe I will later. And then you're good. Okay, Neely, go ahead for Christmas.
Yeah, so I think Christmas is a little bit unique of a holiday in that it tends to last more than just one day. I mean, there's just even Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, they're in a row, but then there's Christmas parties and events and people bringing treats constantly for like 3 weeks. Thanksgiving is a little bit different. It's like it's a one and done. Maybe there's some leftovers, but pretty much it's contained. You don't have Thanksgiving parties all November. So my strategy is I think about how having one day or one meal of things that are not on my most healthy baseline diet is not going to kill me. It's not going to have a huge detrimental effect to my life. But doing 3 weeks of that probably will. So thinking through the holiday season and like picking out special days like Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, or if your company always has an incredible Christmas party, like picking out those days that are going to be like the special days where you choose to indulge a little bit more, or eat a little bit off if you are choosing to do the moderation thing. And then don't between that. Don't just pick at the cookie tray that the neighbor brought over. It's like there's so many foods where it's like, oh, this only comes out over the holidays, and if I don't eat it, I'm going to miss it. And so there's like all this picking and trying, and it ends up being a whole 3-week long binge. And at the end of it, you really are in a worse place as far as your health goes. Whereas if you had just chosen to indulge those 1, 2, 3 specific times over the month, yeah, maybe you're not going to lose 10 pounds that month, but you're going to be in a much better place, physically and mentally probably, than if you just, throw it all out the window for that long amount of time. There's this idea, like we've already talked about, it's either perfection or it's bad. And, we might as well just go all the way if we're going to choose something other than perfection. And that's just not reality. We will never, I will never get to a place of perfection. And so if I'm always shooting for that, I'll always be failing, and it'll always give me an excuse to fail a little harder. And so just accepting that it doesn't have to be perfect, but then to be intentional about the areas where you're choosing less than perfect foods to eat. And I say less than perfect, and I'm only talking about the food choices because I think, like I've already said, it can be very, very healthy in a whole lot of other ways to participate in these social events and gatherings. And so it's not like you're getting rid of health by indulging in these foods. If you indulge in them, you're getting health in other areas of your life, your soul, your spirit. And that translates physically as well. So anyways, don't just let it snowball and end up being a 3-week long binge, but be intentional about the times where you want to choose to participate and enter in and maybe go a little further with food choices than you normally do. But it's like you can go a whole week in between and do a beautiful keto or carnivore diet, and you're going to feel really good by the end of the holidays, and you'll get to indulge a little bit, and you won't end up, in a hole at the end.
I agree. I like the holistic approach.
It has to be based on what you can handle, because there are people that are in a place with their health where they have to stay strict. And so I'm not talking necessarily to those people. If you have to stay on a carnivore diet in order for your autoimmune disease to stay in remission, like, don't go off of that, obviously. This is for people that are at a place in their health where it's not going to destroy them to, indulge just a little bit. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Lindsay,
Why did you have to say the super gross thing of failing, and then I can just fail a little harder? Why did you have to hit me like right in the sternum on that one? Seriously?
Sorry.
Like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it harder than anyone else. So if I'm going to fall short of perfection, I'm going to fall real short of perfection, way better than anybody else.
Yeah,
I'm going to win that.
Yeah.
Yes, you are. See, so this is permission right here. We can let Lindsay fail harder than us.
Lindsay didn't need your permission. She was going to do it anyway.
No, but other people might need to hear this. Let Lindsay do the failing harder thing. Okay. We can just, and that's it. Don't set the bar so high, because then you operate in failure. Don't do that. And just like she said, if you have to stay super strict for your health to not be in agonizing pain or have a flare or whatever it is, that for me, when I was really, really struggling, I didn't care what was on the table. I knew that my pain was worse than whatever that good taste was going to be. So when that was my life, it wasn't a hard decision for me, but for a lot of people, that's not the case. And so maybe lowering that bar down to where it's okay that you go ahead, right? Then it's a good thing. So operating in success is very important whenever you're doing anything, whether it's paying off bills or you're cleaning your house. You want to start with something super, super small, super simple, super easy, because then you get that success. You do it, you make it, and it gives you this flood of endorphins, and you're like, I did that. Who cares that it was just something super tiny, maybe insignificant in the eyes of others? To you, it was a mountain because you did it. So set your bar low to where you can give yourself those easy successes, and then you can shoot for the next hardest thing and then the next hardest thing, but one step at a time. Every mountain is climbed one step at a time. Okay.
Except for the nuts and Janet. Don't eat nuts during Christmas season.
No, right? Again, back to that exactly. We all know. So Janet, are you going to indulge in all the nuts this Christmas? I guess we should just say bye now, right?
No, no, I will not be. I don't make anything with nuts actually at Christmas time. I do have traditional foods that I make every Christmas, and that is an apple pie. And then I usually make about 4 or 5 different squares that I make every Christmas time. But Christmas for me at the stage of just life in general, not necessarily my diet or weight loss, is really focusing on family. And that's what I'm really consciously trying to focus on during Christmas time, because that is the one time of the year that everybody gets together no matter what. So, my oldest daughter has moved out. My dad is 81. And, Zoe, she is going to be transferring to a university probably next fall and won't be living at home. And so now it's a different focus rather than the food at Christmas time, and it's family. And my kids are getting older and moving away. My dad is getting older and doesn't won't live forever, unfortunately. And I really cherish those times that we all get together. My dad is with my girls, and we're just all together under one roof and really focusing on that, whether it's a day or 2 days that we are all in one place under one roof, because that will not always be forever. My girls, will find husbands. My dad will pass away. And it's those things that I really focus on at Christmas time. And I realized that in kind of last Christmas, because that was the first time when Jenna was away from home, and she lives, 4 or 5 hours from us now. And I miss her, right? I miss her throughout the year. And so when you have those times and all your family come together, when it's your children and your parents, you really want to embrace those times rather than being like, oh, I made, cherry squares, I got to eat all of these. Like, that's not really the focus anymore for me during the Christmas time. It's more like my dad is here, and Jenna's here and Zoe's here, and we're all together under one roof. And everybody's talking and conversing and how things are going and everything. And that's what I really try to embrace at Christmas time. And as hard as it is, I really want to encourage the viewers to take time to enjoy your family, because all 3 of you have kids that are still at home, right? And there will be a time when those kids are not at home. They'll be living hours away from you. Your parents will be another 10 years older, and the food will always be there, you guys. The food will always be there every single Christmas time or every holiday. The apple pie will still taste the same, but next Christmas, maybe one of your parents won't be with you. So really try to think about that at Christmas time rather than all of the food and binging all in one day or all in that week, and really take the time to enjoy family. That is what I have to say about Christmas. And that's really what I'm concentrating on starting last Christmas. I realized that. So yeah.
That is brilliant. Another golden nugget for you guys. So I'm trying to find new traditions for our family that don't involve food. The food
Snowball fights are always a win.
I think this year it's going to be like, who can shovel the biggest pile of snow?
No, get them to build snow forts. That's the cool part about snow. Whenever it dumps you like 7 feet of snow forts.
We haven't gotten the 7 feet yet, but I think this year, I'm guessing we might get it.
Well, I mean, if you snow plow and you get it all built up in a berm, and then you just go hollow it out.
That's true. Totally true. So that's what I'm really hoping you focus on this year, is to create new traditions that don't have anything to do with food. My kids' favorite so far since we've been in this house is sledding down this short little hill that leads to the creek, but it's, not deadly. Don't worry. It's fine. On these giant plastic and styrofoam pieces that came underneath our big deep freezers. They were like, this is better than any sled because they're big enough that all of them can stand on it and go down the hill together. And that's what they remember. That's what they look forward to. So every time it snows, they're like sledding and they want me to go with them. I have 18 of the things I could do in the house. I would rather be cooking than sledding, but my kids keep asking me, Can you go sledding? Can you do this? It's just not something, I grew up in the snow. I sledded enough for my life. I'm good. But that's what they want. They want those memories. And so I'm trying to shift my thinking from I got to be in the kitchen making all the food to I need to be out in the snow with my children making these memories, making the snowmen, making the snow forts this year, and doing those kinds of things. So yes, I'm going to cook. We're going to have a feast because we always have a feast, and it usually lasts for a couple of days because there's tons of leftovers. I think one of their favorite things is actually eating junk on Christmas morning. And it's usually like the cinnamon rolls.
Mhm.
Because we don't usually have cinnamon rolls for breakfast. And that to them is like the one food thing that I've kind of allowed in is we get to have the cinnamon rolls. And of course it's the protein sparing ones because I can't eat the wheat at all. So that is the one food thing that they think of as the cinnamon rolls in the morning. But otherwise they're like, what are we going to do for the day?
Yeah.
And it's all of those traditions that we're trying to get set up. So that's where I'm kind of focusing is away from the food. We're always talking about food. There will always be food.
Mhm.
So what else could we look at creating as a tradition? So that's where our focus is going to be. And I think we should probably wrap this up because it's been going for a few minutes. So thank you, ladies, for your insight, your golden wisdom nuggets. They have been fantastic. Everybody, leave a comment down below. If we forgot something, if you have a question and you would like our opinion on something for that specific holiday, we'll try. We will absolutely try. So
I want to hear everyone else's tips for the holidays too. Things that
whatever
maybe
we forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah, please help others through this season because some people are brand new to this. They just started their keto journey or their carnivore journey or their low carb journey, and they don't know what they're doing and it's uncharted territory. So let's help build one another up and support each other in this community as we make it through the holidays. So thank you everyone so much for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Mhm.
Also, why did you have to say that?
I was just gonna say it has to be based on.
Wait, what book is next to you, Linz? What is that? You have a book there. It matches your shirt.
It does.
Oh,
matter of
and a
fact.
fashion show.
So this book is you're jealous of these lazy readers. They're just like prisms and you put them on so you can read in bed or if you're watching TV or whatever. I know you're jealous.
Oh,
I see it and I feel it. It's amazing.
Oh, Lindsay.
And I put them on over top of my reading glasses so there's like a lot of space. It's a lot of fun.
Wait, and your book says drop acid. So
Jeez.
We like to keep it weird. I really like Alice in Wonderland, Through the Looking Glass. Thank you, Lewis Carroll. No, it's Drop Acid, Dr. Perlmutter, and it's been a trip. You know you like that.
that was totally worth recording again.
Gosh, Lindsay, I'm dying.
Okay, we can go now.